The cuffs clicked shut with a snap that echoed down the cul-de-sac. Karen stood there, one hand on her hip, the other gripping a clipboard like it was a sword. She smiled wide, her voice syrupy and smug, declaring in front of the entire HOA block that my brother was officially in violation. Unauthorized fencing. Tampering with community aesthetics. Civil disobedience, she said. My brother didn't fight it. He didn't flinch. He looked her straight in the eye, calm, like a man who's seen far worse than a power-tripping neighborhood committee. The neighbors were recording it all on their phones, whispering as if they hadn't known him for 5 years. Some even nodded in approval. That's how fear works. It turns good people into spectators. I tried stepping forward, my heart pounding. Karen shoved her palm out. You're interfering with community action, she snapped. Step back or you'll be next. I should have said something. I should have shouted. But I froze. The kind of freeze that comes not from fear, but from knowing this wasn't just about a fence. This was about power. And Karen wanted all of it. That fence, it was 2 inches taller than the HOA regulation. 2 inches. Built to keep stray coyotes from entering our yard. But Karen had been gunning for us since we moved in, ever since my brother turned down her offer to join the HOA security subcommittee. She said we weren't community material. When a local patrol showed up, 2 part-time deputies, and a man I'd never seen before, Karen lit up like she was welcoming royalty. The unknown man didn't wear a badge, just a dark windbreaker and a stern face. She whispered something to him. He nodded once. That's when they put my brother in the back seat of the SUV. He still didn't resist, but I saw something in his eyes then. Not fear, not confusion. Just quiet calculation, like someone flipping through a mental folder of classified options. That man, I muttered. Who is he? Karen heard me. Her smile sharpened. Special consultant to the HOA board, she said. Community defense strategist. That wasn't a real thing. There's no such title in any legal HOA documentation. My brother was gone before I could stop them. Tires squealed. The SUV turned the corner and vanished behind manicured hedges and vinyl siding. I paced the sidewalk, fists clenched, feeling every neighbor's eyes on me. Some had their phones still out. One whispered something about finally getting rid of the quiet freak. They didn't know. He was quiet because he had to be. He didn't go to barbecues or wine nights because he was always working. And that work? It wasn't retail. It wasn't desk job 9 to 5. It was protection. Surveillance. Shadow duty. He didn't talk about it, but I knew enough. I knew the late-night calls, the weeks he vanished, the way his back tensed every time a helicopter passed overhead. My brother wasn't normal. He was never meant to be. And Karen, she just stepped on a landmine she couldn't see. The next day, a notice appeared on our mailbox. Community eviction proceedings underway. Trespass order filed. Karen had escalated this into something else, something bigger than either of us expected. That's when my brother came back. No sirens, no handcuffs, just a slow walk up the driveway and a voice low enough only I could hear. She made the wrong move. I stared at him. You okay? He nodded, then said 3 words that shattered everything I thought I knew. They followed me home. That night, 2 black SUVs parked at opposite ends of the street. Unmarked, tinted, silent. Karen stood on her porch in her robe, arms crossed, watching like a hawk. But her smile was gone. My brother went inside without a word. But before closing the door, he looked at her. Not with hate, not with fear, just with finality. She doesn't know who she arrested, he said. I blinked. You're not just some agent, are you? He shook his head. I've worked protection detail for 8 years. Former White House. Current intercept. So what happens now? He glanced back out the window. Now we wait. If this story's got your heart racing even a little, hit that like button. Subscribe for the next twist you won't see coming. And drop a comment below. What would you do if someone tried to arrest your family for protecting your home? The sun hadn't even risen when the first SUV started circling the neighborhood again. Same matte black finish. Same tinted windows. It didn't stop. Just crawled past every driveway like it was mapping something. Karen stood in her front yard in a pressed blazer, like she was running for mayor. She waved at the vehicle with a smug smile. She still thought she was in control. Inside our house, my brother sat at the kitchen table, reading an encrypted report on a phone I had never seen before. The kind of phone that didn't belong to civilians. His face was unreadable. "What are they doing out there?" I asked. His voice was calm but cold. "Recon. They're checking signal breaches, license plates, and surveillance logs. Karen's HOA server pinged a federal database last night. That's not something you do by accident." "Wait, what?" He tapped the phone. Someone inside the HOA network tried accessing restricted files. Military contractor data. Homeland directories. She didn't just cross a line. She dug under the fence and ran toward the alarms. But why would she even? Because power makes people blind. She thought she was above the system. She didn't know the system was watching her. Karen's phone must have buzzed just then because her face changed. Her smug smile cracked like glass. She turned toward her door, fumbled with her keys, and slammed it behind her. That's when I noticed the second SUV. It was parked silently across from our house, engine off, no lights. A man stepped out, not wearing a badge, not a uniform, just a Navy suit and the kind of presence that makes the air feel heavier. He walked straight to our door. My brother opened it before he knocked. They exchanged a look. Not fear, not surprise, just history. The man nodded. "We've been tracking her for months. You gave us what we needed. But there's a new complication." My brother's jaw tightened. "What happened?" "She filed a federal impersonation complaint, claimed you used a fake badge, staged your arrest for attention, and threatened HOA leadership." My stomach dropped. That's not even close to what happened. The man looked at me for the first time. "Doesn't matter. Optics matter more. We need to move now, or she spins this into a full media circus." My brother stood. "What do you need?" "Testimony. Records. But more than that, we need the footage." I thought back to the neighbor across the street. The one always on his porch, pretending to water plants that didn't exist. His doorbell cam. It had the full view. "We got it within the hour." Karen's voice on tape, instructing two HOA board members to hold my brother while she taught him a legal lesson. Her words. Her voice. Her mistake. But it wasn't enough. She held a town meeting that night, invited the whole HOA community, claimed my brother was a fraud, that he staged everything for attention and clout, said we were con artists sent to destabilize the neighborhood. People started to believe her. One woman shouted, "You're bringing government eyes to our street." Another man yelled, "We liked it better before you two moved in." And then the third SUV arrived. It didn't stop outside. It pulled onto Karen's lawn. 3 agents stepped out. No warnings. No questions. The man in the Navy suit walked up the stage, past Karen mid-sentence, and held up a printed still from the footage. Karen's face, mid-shout, hand on my brother's wrist, barking orders. The room went silent. "You are not under arrest," the agent said. "Not yet. But you are now part of an open federal inquiry." Karen tried to speak. Her voice cracked. Her hand shook. I was just enforcing neighborhood law." "You tried to weaponize civilian authority," the agent said, "and you interfered with a federal asset. We take that seriously." She stumbled off the stage, past gaping mouths and silent neighbors. Her power evaporated like mist in the heat. Back home, my brother didn't smile, didn't gloat. "This isn't over," he said. "Why not? You proved your case. Because she's not acting alone." He looked at the phone again. A new message blinked on the screen. Encrypted. From an internal source. His eyes narrowed. "Get ready. They're moving in pairs now. If you've made it this far, you're officially part of this story. Hit that like button to make sure more people hear the truth. Subscribe for what happens next. It's bigger than Karen. And let me know in the comments, what would you do if your neighbor tried to erase your identity? Karen didn't sleep that night. Her house stayed lit from every window like a fortress. Blinds drawn, security lights flickering, shadows pacing behind the glass. By morning, her car was gone, but 2 unfamiliar trucks were parked in her driveway. No plates, no markings. Inside our home, the tension had shifted. My brother stood by the window in silence, phone in hand, fingers tightening every time he refreshed the feed. He wasn't watching news. He was reading field reports. They found traces of her login credentials inside a flagged cyber activity network. Someone was digging through classified municipal contracts tied to former defense contractors, contracts my brother had worked to protect years ago. Karen had no idea what she'd accessed, but someone else did. And now they were watching both her and us. I asked him what that meant. He didn't answer. Instead, he opened the closet and pulled out a small padded case, the kind you see in movies. Heavy metal, latches on all sides. He laid it on the table and cracked it open. Inside a badge, a real one. Heavy, authentic. Not just federal, something deeper. Something without a name. I used to carry this on assignment, he said. Then he paused. Until I got pulled off for something I can't talk about. They thought it was over. But Karen stunned. She lit the wrong fuse. I didn't speak. I just listened. Every breath between his words sounded like a countdown. That afternoon, HOA board members started resigning. 3 stepped down within 2 hours. A fourth one, Tom, stood in front of his own house and screamed at his Ring doorbell, saying he was never part of this. His voice shook. His hands trembled. He kept shouting that Karen tricked them all, that he just wanted to retire in peace. My brother watched from the porch. Not with satisfaction, just quiet acceptance. Every move Karen made was unraveling in real time. But the deeper truth, this wasn't about offense anymore. It was about access. Karen had somehow acquired digital keys to a restricted server farm. The logs proved it. That's what triggered the SUVs, the agents, the suits. She'd walked into a digital vault she had no business being near. And worse, she brought her entire HOA into it. We knew it was only a matter of time before she tried to cover her tracks. And she did. The moment came when we least expected it. That night, someone tried to break into our garage. They bypassed the motion lights, cut the side lock, didn't make a sound. But what they didn't know, my brother had replaced the security system with his own. The sensors weren't store-bought. They were military grade. The second the door creaked, it tripped a signal, one not sent to local police, but to a private security channel. Within 5 minutes, 2 men in plain clothes arrived in a civilian sedan. One stayed outside. The other entered the garage with my brother. They found the intruder kneeling behind the water heater, holding a flash drive. He didn't speak, just looked up blank and cold. No panic, no fear, just like he'd been trained for this moment. The man was detained without a sound. No sirens, no questions. My brother turned to me after they drove off. They weren't here for you, he said. They were here for what Karen left behind. She planted something in your house? He nodded. Information and bait. The next morning, a federal cease and desist was taped to every mailbox on the block. HOA activity suspended. Investigations underway. Residents advised not to destroy or tamper with digital records. Panic spread like wildfire. People started whispering. Some called Karen a spy. Others thought she was part of something bigger. But the truth was more terrifying. She wasn't part of anything. She was being used. My brother confirmed it when he read the final data ping. Karen hadn't broken into anything herself. Someone had walked her through it, fed her access, promised her influence. She was just a vessel. And now they were cutting her loose. If you're still watching, you're deep in this now. Hit that like button if you're breathing faster. Subscribe if you feel like something big is coming. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if your neighbor became the key to a national breach? By noon, Karen had vanished. Her house sat quiet, blinds sealed tight, porch untouched. Mail overflowed the box. No one had seen her since the night someone tried to breach our garage. Word spread that she'd fled the city. But my brother wasn't convinced. She's not gone, he said. She's hiding. Or worse, waiting. He wasn't sleeping much. Barely eating. He spent hours cross-referencing encrypted data logs from old contacts, tracking pings bouncing across servers that didn't belong to civilians. Every time he traced something back, a new shadow appeared in the digital static. This wasn't just Karen anymore. We were in it now. Fully. Then the signal came in. An access attempt. Logged 5 miles from our location. The same encrypted ID Karen had used. It pinged once. Then disappeared. My brother froze. That's her. We drove. Fast. No sirens. Just tension crawling under our skin. The coordinates led to a rural property on the edge of town. Abandoned warehouse, rusted fencing, empty lot. It looked forgotten by time. But inside, the lights were on. We approached slow. Every step felt like crossing into something irreversible. The front door wasn't locked. It wasn't even shut fully. Inside, rows of old equipment buzzed. Karen's laptop sat on a folding table. Screens glowed with government files and live traffic from street cams all over our neighborhood. Karen stood at the center of it all, hair wild, eyes rimmed with red, speaking into a headset. They turned on me. You hear me? I did everything you asked. I followed every protocol. She didn't notice us at first. But when she did, her voice cracked. You brought them, didn't you? She grabbed the laptop and ran toward the back. My brother bolted after her. I followed, my heart hammering in my throat. Karen burst through a metal side door and out into the open, but a black SUV screeched into the lot, blocking her path. The man in the navy suit stepped out again. Calm. Silent. Karen froze. You said I was protected, she yelled. You promised. No one promised anything, the man said. You were a tool. You gave us access. Now you're just noise. That's when she snapped. She lunged back toward the laptop, screaming that she had files. She had leverage. She'd release everything if anyone touched her. But it was too late. My brother stepped forward. Calm. Controlled. It's over, Karen. She stared at him like a caged animal. You think you won? You think they care about you? I was doing their work. You broke into protected networks, he said. You leaked live surveillance. You impersonated a federal officer. You're not the victim. She dropped the laptop. It shattered on impact. The agents moved in. No yelling. No cuffs. Just silence. Karen didn't resist. She collapsed onto the concrete and covered her face as they walked her to the vehicle. It felt empty. Not victorious. Just quiet. Like something ended without a winner. Back at home, the sun was starting to set. My brother sat on the steps, eyes locked on the horizon. So that's it? I asked. No, he said. That's the beginning. Turns out Karen had never known who she was truly working for. Her data trail connected to a much larger operation, one flagged years ago by an internal task force my brother had once helped shut down. Someone had revived it. Quietly, sloppily, and they used HOA networks as the new access points. Karen was just the first. That night, I found him loading a duffel bag with files. Real ones. Hard copies. Names. Locations. Where are you going? He didn't look up. They reactivated the directive. They need people who've already seen the inside of this. What about here? He paused. This place is safer now. But it won't stay that way unless people keep watching. He handed me a burner phone. If anything pings, you call me. Then he was gone. No goodbye. Just mission mode. Just like before. And I stood there, holding that phone, feeling like the world was a lot wider and darker than I'd ever known. If this story made you feel anything, like share and subscribe so we can keep exposing what's really going on. Drop a comment below. Do you think Karen was a villain or just another pawn in a game too big to see? 3 days passed. The street went silent. Karen's house stayed empty, but neighbors began whispering again. Some pretended they'd always sided with us. Others avoided eye contact altogether. The HOA sign at the front of the community had been torn down. What replaced it was a simple flyer, taped to a mailbox post. Public oversight meeting, urgent. Wednesday. Town hall. I didn't plan to go. But when I saw the black SUV parked 2 blocks down, engine running, same man in the navy suit inside, I knew something was still burning beneath the surface. I showed up early. The hall was packed. Nervous chatter, phone cameras, folding chairs arranged in rows like a courtroom. I spotted familiar faces from the neighborhood. Some who had cheered when my brother was cuffed. Some who'd been silent since. Then the doors opened, and she walked in. Karen, not in cuffs, not escorted, just alone. Gasps rippled through the room. She didn't look like herself. No makeup, no clipboard, no armor of self-importance. Her hand shook slightly, but she walked straight to the microphone at the front. "I know what you all think," she said. "And you're right." A hush fell over the crowd. I wanted control. I wanted respect. I thought if I made the rules, I'd finally be seen. But the truth is, I was being used. I didn't see it until it was too late. She looked directly at me. I hurt people. I turned neighbors into suspects. I called the cops on a man who was protecting us the whole time. And I almost helped people do far worse. The room was still. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I'm not hiding either. Then she stepped back, left the mic. Before anyone could speak, another figure stood from the back of the room. A man I hadn't seen before. Gray beard, pressed shirt, veteran's cap. He looked like he'd walked through wars. "My name's David. I served with the man you arrested." Whispers. He didn't tell me much about what happened here, but he asked me to come. Said the truth needed to land. Said too many good men get buried under silence and spin. David pulled out a flash drive, plugged it into the projector at the front of the room. The screen lit up. It was footage. Real, raw, time-stamped. My brother, undercover, protecting diplomats, intercepting threats, walking streets that most of us only see in headlines. He'd been at the front lines of chaos, and yet here, he was treated like a criminal by people who never asked what he'd been through. By the time the footage ended, half the room was in tears. Some stood. Some clapped. Others simply stared at the floor. Karen didn't move. Then David spoke again. "You all let fear make your decisions. You forgot how to ask questions. You forgot that sometimes the quiet ones are the ones keeping the wolves at bay." He turned to me. "Your brother's not just a name in a report. He's a shield. And shields don't break. They just get heavy." After the meeting, people approached me. Apologies. Regrets. Too many too late. I nodded, but I didn't speak much. The damage had already carved its mark. Karen walked past me on the way out. She stopped. "I know I can't fix what I broke, but I can tell the truth now. That's something." She kept walking. Later that night, the man in the Navy suit showed up at my door. Alone. "You should know," he said, "we've uncovered the root." Karen wasn't the only HOA president targeted. There's a pattern. A network. They're grooming local leadership to slip past digital firewalls and social trust. "How many?" "Dozens," he said. "Maybe more. But now we know where to look." And my brother. Off-grid. Operative status reinstated. He'll surface when the time's right. He turned to leave, but paused. He told me one more thing. He said to tell you this: don't let them turn neighbors into enemies. Not again. And then he vanished into the night. If this story hit you in any way, like, share, and subscribe. Let's make sure these truths don't disappear. Drop a comment below. Would you trust your HOA president with your life? Because someone almost did. I stood quietly beside the lake, the sun slowly dipping below the trees, casting long shadows over the construction site. The hum of machinery had faded for the day, and all that remained was the scent of fresh earth and the distant calls of night birds. I watched the water ripple as a gentle breeze moved across its surface. The calm before the storm. Earlier that morning, I'd received a letter from the county office. Not just any letter, an official acknowledgement. My land development was now certified as an eco-resort initiative, backed by both the Environmental Board and the State Tourism Authority. Every permit Karen tried to block, overridden. Every complaint she submitted, overruled. I didn't want to celebrate too early. I knew Karen would strike again. And she did. As the final beams were being laid for the guest cottages, a black SUV pulled up. Out stepped Karen, hair disheveled, clipboard in hand, and fury etched deep in her expression. But this time, she wasn't alone. 2 HOA board members were with her, whispering nervously, unsure why they'd even come. Behind them, a local reporter with a camera slung over her shoulder followed closely, intrigued by the growing tension surrounding the project. Karen stormed up to the edge of the construction zone. "This is not over," she snapped. "You think you can just destroy our neighborhood with your resort nonsense? I held my ground, calm and steady. This isn't nonsense, Karen. It's legally protected land use. I've worked through every channel, followed every law. This land is mine, and I'm using it to build something better. She stepped closer, voice rising. You're bringing in outsiders, tourists. You're destroying the serenity of our community. The reporter began filming. I turned to her. Would you like a statement? You can document this moment. Karen tried to block the camera with her clipboard. You can't film me without permission. The reporter replied dryly. We're on public land, Karen, and your HOA actions have made this a matter of public interest. Karen froze. The HOA board members exchanged glances. Then one of them quietly spoke. We didn't approve this visit. Karen told us it was an emergency. I watched them carefully. Emergency? Over what? Legally permitted land development. They didn't answer. The reporter panned across the construction site, capturing the elegant dock framework, the eco-cabin designs, and the signage explaining the sustainable systems in place. I knew this footage was going to be seen across the county, and maybe even beyond. Karen's anger turned to desperation. We can still stop him. There's got to be something in the bylaws, noise, pollution, traffic. The other board member shook his head. There's nothing left, Karen. Every complaint has been answered. Every vote you tried to push was denied. He's within his rights. For the first time, I saw real panic on her face. Not fury. Panic. She turned, facing the camera. You don't understand what he's done to us. He's changed everything. The reporter zoomed in. Can you clarify who us is, Karen? And what exactly you mean by everything? Karen stood speechless. The HOA board members quietly stepped back toward their car. The reporter followed them, asking questions about their knowledge of the permits and HOA involvement. I stayed by the water. A crew member handed me a document, a final approval from the State Recreational Council. It allowed me to begin building the lakeside amphitheater. Outdoor movie nights, live performances, and astronomy presentations, all part of the plan. Karen was right about one thing. Everything was changing, but not for the worse. As the sun set completely and the sky turned to deep velvet, I walked toward the lodge construction area. The future was taking shape, timber by timber, stone by stone. And Karen, her clipboard hung at her side, her voice quiet now, her authority slipping through her fingers like water. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The sky was painted in shades of blue and gold, and a faint mist hovered over the lake. My boots crunched over the damp ground as I made my way toward the site where the new amphitheater would soon take form. It felt surreal, watching this dream evolve from a simple sketch into something real, something lasting. But just as I arrived at the clearing, I noticed something strange. The fencing around the construction area had been pulled down. Equipment had been tampered with. A generator was tipped on its side, wires cut, mud tracks leading back toward the road. I felt my heart clench, not from anger, but from the knowledge of who might be behind it. I took out my phone and called the county inspector assigned to my project. He was already on his way. Turns out he'd received an anonymous tip overnight claiming I was running illegal work after hours. I didn't need to guess who sent it. Within the hour, he arrived with a local sheriff's deputy. They surveyed the damage, documented everything. The inspector sighed. Someone's trying hard to get this place shut down. The sheriff added, and they just made it worse for themselves. Tampering with approved work zones and heavy equipment is a criminal offense. I nodded silently. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. But peace doesn't always come easy. Later that day, we reviewed the footage from the perimeter cameras. At 3:17 a.m., headlights flashed through the trees. A figure climbed through the fencing. Even under the grainy footage, her outline was unmistakable. Karen, with her coat hood pulled up, struggling to avoid the camera directly. But she didn't realize there were multiple angles. I handed the footage over to the sheriff. I'm not trying to ruin anyone's life, I said, but this has to stop. He nodded. You're doing everything right. Let us handle it from here. Word spread fast. By evening, neighbors came by, not in protest, but in quiet support. A retired teacher brought fresh lemonade. A young couple from across the road offered to help repair the fencing. They were tired of the drama, tired of Karen making everyone afraid to speak up. Then, as if on cue, Karen returned. This time, she didn't come storming in with a clipboard. She walked slowly, eyes downcast, stopping just before the lake's edge. She looked up at me with something I hadn't seen in her before, hesitation. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said quietly. "I just didn't want everything to change." I stood in silence for a moment. Change isn't always the enemy, Karen. Sometimes it's the only way forward. She looked away. "They're pressing charges, aren't they?" "That's not up to me," I replied. "But I'm not out for punishment. I just want this place to grow without fear." She nodded slowly, then turned and walked away. The sheriff would follow up with her. The footage would speak for itself. But in that moment, I felt no triumph. Only a quiet relief. A heavy weight slowly lifting. That night, under the stars, we lit the first fire pit by the dock. Workers, neighbors, even the county inspector joined in. Stories were shared. Laughter echoed over the water. Music played softly in the background. The land was alive. As I watched the flickering flames dance in the reflection of the lake, I realized something. This wasn't just a project anymore. It had become a place of healing, not just for me, but for everyone tired of silence, tired of fear, tired of invisible fences. The resort was no longer a dream. It was our reality. And the gates that once tried to divide us, they'd been replaced by bridges.